Armed Forces Remembrance Day is an annual event marked on the 15th of January to commemorate the nation's departed compatriots, as well as to honor our living veterans. This day brings our minds back to 15th January 1966, when a group of young army majors overthrew Nigeria's democratic government in a violent military coup. Although most of Nigeria's current population of over 200 million was not born when the country's first coup was staged, its legacy lingers on. The officers who staged the coup assassinated several people, including Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa and Northern Region Premier Ahmadu Bello. Amongst those assassinated on that very fateful day was Festus Okotie Eboh, who was the finance minister of Nigeria during the administration of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Chief Festus Samuel Okotie Eboh was a Nigerian parliamentarian from 1951 to 1966. He was a forebearer of democracy, Nigeria's Federal Minister of Labor and Social Welfare from 1955 to 1957, and the first Federal Minister of Finance from 1957 to 1966. His legacy is deeply rooted in the development of Nigeria's finance sector. His pioneering efforts as Federal Minister of Finance gave rise to the pay-as-you-earn, what we know as payee system of taxation, an efficient and cost-effective method of personal income tax collection. He also advocated and ensured that an independent Nigeria issued her currency. The logic of this was that Nigeria should have its own central bank instead of depending on the West African Currency Board for issuance. Thus, the Central Bank of Nigeria was founded in 1958. These are just a few of his contributions that have shaped Nigeria. Speaking at the 50th memorial of the late Chief Festus Okotie Eboh, former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo paid homage to his contributions to Nigeria and the significance of today.
Children and members of the family of late Festus Okotie Eboh, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me say that this is a day that God has made, and let us rejoice and be happy in it. For me, I am particularly happy to be here. I'm particularly happy to be part of this day. Exactly 50 years ago, darkness enveloped. Many of us who were around then were confused. Many of us were taken by surprise. And even many of us in the military, we did not know where to turn and how to turn. That we are able to gather together here today and remember, and in a way celebrate the lives of our early leaders, who, whatever may be their deficiency, they give us independence. And for that,
Joining us on the show this morning to discuss what Armed Forces Remembrance Day and the 1966 coup means to her is Dr. Mrs. Ajoritsedere Awosika, MFR, former chairman of Access Bank PLC and honorary consul to the Czech Republic. She would also be discussing how her family has moved on from the death of her dad, Chief Festus Okotie Eboh, and the making of the documentary honoring her father. Good morning, ma'am. It's such a delight and an honor to have you with us on the morning show today.
Thank you very much.
And I have to say happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Thank you. It's a mixed birthday.
Yes,
Thank you very much. But we thank God for everything. We thank God for life.
Thank God. Now, I'm sure the 15th of January each year, since your 13th birthday, must hold an extra special meaning for you. Well, maybe more significant meaning for you. You've often talked about the circumstances where you were when you heard about your dad being abducted and then finally his assassination on the day. But most importantly, you've often talked about his legacy and what today means for you, not just as Armed Forces Remembrance Day, the date of his death and how it has impacted you, and if his legacy, you can see it shine through in the Nigeria of today, 59 years later.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this 59 years later. It's like yesterday. And for me, I would like to just say thank you to the Lord. God has been good that one can grow up in that circumstance and be able to sit and say something about my dad. I thank you for the introduction, which was true. I thank God also that we're celebrating 15th January has become a day we celebrate for fallen heroes, particularly when we look at the war that was fought after the coup and the unsettled nation. And perhaps it's a good thing that we do it on the 15th January and hope that it's all-encompassing, not just remembering the fallen soldiers which have done a great job for uniting the nation under Yakubu Gowon's regime, but also, like you heard the former president spoke, the heroes that have brought Nigeria into being a nation, like my older Tafawa Balewa and the like. They fought for the country, they brought the nation to be, and they died in that circumstance, which was not pleasant. Happened to be also January 15, same day that the war finished, and it's everything being celebrated, being remembered. Such honors should go beyond. Such history is significant. If you look at I draw an analogy with the United States, where today also is a public holiday in the United States for the young man that was assassinated, Martin Luther?
Martin Luther King Day?
Junior.
Yes, Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
That's the day. So he was also fighting for liberation of the people. So sometimes what you see is people fight and die, people fight and live. So those that live to honor their memory. So I'm so happy to be able to join to honor the memory of my late dad and his colleagues that passed on under a very, very sad circumstance. So I will say that the efforts they put in place in a new independent nation need to be further acknowledged and need to be further admired, and the examples that, as well as their mistakes, to be put in the glare of history for us to learn. That was the beginning of politics in Nigeria as an independent nation. We're still struggling with politics. Are there lessons to be learned from them? Are there things that can shape a better Nigeria? Has Nigeria come to be? Yes, it has come to be. It has come to stay, diverse with strengths rather than weaknesses. And the weaknesses are things that they were able to cope with in their time and come together. I mean, we were living next to Tafawa Balewa, who was then the prime minister, and there was such comradeship amongst all of them, to the extent that it goes to the children as well. And for them, casting my mind back and also being a public servant that came through the federal service and rose up to be permanent secretary before I retired, I've come to see that such legacies are worth learning the rope so that we can continue to unite as a people and mend and strengthen our weaknesses. I want to believe that the weakness at that time led to a group, and I'm happy the way they put it, a group of disgruntled officers decided to carry out the coup. Painful it is. What are the lessons there? They are disgruntled officers. They are people who didn't understand. They are eager to make a change, and they could not. History has proven that they could not make that change. So if that change could not be made, the better thing is to unite to be able to see a better nation for tomorrow. And at this point, I think the reason why somebody like my dad was killed is, and I'm sure in his, because I know he's in heaven, I know that for sure. And as he looks down from the cloud of witness, he would like to say things like this. Let me quote in one of the things he said after the creation of Midwest State. And I quote from his writings. I read a lot of his writings. I like to quote. He said, I have my own circle of friends which cuts across political parties. I do not consider that if my friends who are found dependable belong to a party of different persuasion, they should for that reason cease to be my friends. The essence of our democracy is freedom of association. Just as I cannot be disloyal to my party, which has given me the opportunity to serve my country for the past 10 years. He was saying this in 1964. Just as I cannot be loyal to my party, I cannot be disloyal to my party, which has given me the opportunity to serve my country for the past 10 years. So also I cannot, in the name of party politics, be ungrateful to sincere and tried friends, who, though they may not share the same political ideology with me, have kept their words with me as friends. It is not fair that I should show ingratitude, either publicly or secretly, to those who, in spite of all difficulties, stood by their words and helped us to have a region of our own. He was talking about Midwest State. He was talking about the creation of that region, which was the first region outside the existing northern, western, and eastern region. It was a task of getting everybody. The lesson there is we need one another to be able to make progress. Are we doing that? Are we coming together? Are parties seeing the need? Are they seeing the need to build friendship beyond politics and governance being part of coming together to be able to make progress? I think we need to do that. Absolutely. I think we need to learn things from them. This is what he said. I read it and I marked it. And I said, I'll put it forward today to be able to see that we look at our leaders and our politicians to look beyond politics once they are governing and begin to govern for the sake of the people. Today we have Midwest has gone into Edo State and Delta State. It's moving forward. Again and again, we continue to need one another. So the history is past. The regrets of yesterday, we need to feel sorry for them. The good of yesterday, we need to move forward with it. Absolutely. That's what I see.
It's very well said. Very well said, ma'am. And I was also digging into some of his writings and some of the things he said. And a quote stuck out to me from the budget speech of 1963 when he was speaking about, he said, I'm deeply concerned at the mounting levels of government recurrent expenditure and particularly the tendency for expenditure on administrative and social services to outstrip the growth of revenues. And it stuck out to me because this is a conversation we're currently having right now. It's very apt for the times. And this is what I saw as I went through his writings, is that the themes are still exactly the same. We're still contending with the exact same issues. Where do you think there is the unwillingness for us to learn from the path that has already been crossed and treaded by those who came before us? Some people are saying that, well, it's because history is not being taught anymore, so we've lost a sense of national identity and our people no longer know what to ask for. We don't know that the answers are in our history. Why do you think we are disconnecting ourselves from this rich wisdom that already exists in our nation's history?
Thank you very much. Very key question. Where? You know, there are two syndromes that exist. One syndrome is I know it all. So I come into a new position. I have my set mind, and I do not look into where they have been. So, you know, like in the ministry, we do have handover notes. For me, I always read handover notes up to 10 years backwards to see exactly where we're coming from. You took this quote from the budget speech. Sometimes when I read this budget speech like you do, I'm amazed that there are solutions there. Even in his speeches that he made as the chairman of the governor representing Nigeria in World Bank, and there's nothing new. There are things that he has said to World Bank that are still relevant for tomorrow. I look at IMF. I look at the speeches that he made as representative in the IMF, and I look at the speeches that he made as African Development Bank first chairman. The vision is there. The purpose is there. It's all driven, but it's for us who takes up such position with all good intention, with the knowledge that we have, to add more to it by looking at the history, what has been said, what has been done, what failed, what didn't fail, what has worked, and follow through and make the job easier. It's always easier when you look through what has failed, avoid it. You move with a speed that is unprecedented, and people think that you are special. No, it is because you've learned from others. So the key summary is try to learn from others. Have a learning mind, an open mind, because you are a servant of the people. Yeah. So you need to be able to satisfy people around the table. So the lessons are there. What we are talking about taxes today is already there. Yeah. And if we do it the way that it ought to be done, as written in because the finance ministry takes care of the arrangement for the taxes, the poor people, the rich, how to make it work, the revenue allocation, and so on and so forth. So all of them are there. They are not new. We just need to be open and to know that if I come to any position, I come to add value and not to subtract from the existing one.
Absolutely. Well,
thank you.
You've often talked about the integrity of your dad whilst he served Nigeria in with his different portfolios, last of which was being the first Federal Minister of Finance. And we've highlighted some of his contributions. We cannot talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria today without talking about him. We cannot talk about the Nigerian Stock Exchange without talking about him. We cannot talk about Nigeria being a member of the IMF without talking about him. We can't talk about Chevron being cited in Esquavos in Delta State without talking about him. However, one thing you said during the 50th anniversary of his death, and what I don't know if that has changed, is the state's recognition, immortalizing him and the legacy that he left behind. Has this been done? And if it hasn't, what would you like to say to the Nigerian state? Because we must remember the sacrifices of our heroes past. As we often talk about, we must look back in order to move forward. Has anything been done? And if not, what would you like the state to do to honor the legacy of a great man such as Chief Festus Okotie Eboh?
Thank you very much for that question. That remains a pain. Two things remain a pain in me, but no, I leave it to God. The fact that the man Festus Okotie Eboh, Festus Samuel Okotie Eboh, was just an enigma blessed by God. He was rich before he came into government. He actually paid the all for NCNC, his party. And what people see is his flamboyancy, and he was trying to be culturally recognized. He's a proud Nigerian, proud Ichekiri man, and he not only wears the dress, he doesn't eat non-African food outside the country. When we are traveling out, it's a package of African food all going with us. And no matter whom he entertains, including the royal family of the United Kingdom, is the Nigerian food. Fantastic. So he's a proud person beyond the cloth. So he puts, and the dressing that he puts is rich dressing, quite all right. But it's not uncommon in the place where I come from. People dress like that. It's not the only one that dressed like that, but because they see it outside, they look at it as, oh, it's very flamboyant. Yes, he is. And no apologies for that. I'm not. I didn't take that aspect of him, but I love it, and it's good. He hasn't been recognized, perhaps because he's not the prime minister, but he died as a friend of the government. He probably was killed because he's a self-motivated person who is difficult to pull back. They probably know that if they spare him, the coup will not succeed. I can assure you. I know my dad. He will definitely move the world to stop the coup and move the democracy going. So they know his strength. The country hasn't recognized. I brought it to the attention of two presidents, past presidents, the immediate past, approved, but I haven't seen the light of the day on what the request was. When my king, the Olu of Warri, visited, I went in that company, and I thank him for that. Atuashe the third. Yes, he requested from President Buhari, and President Buhari also asked that it should be action, but yet to be seen. Perhaps they will look at it. Government is to continue and look at it. But nevertheless, his legacies cannot be controverted. I'll give you another quote. In 1964, before the election, he didn't want to contest anymore because he's a businessman. He wanted to now go into his business. But his party, President Nnamdi Azikiwe then and Tafawa Balewa, they wanted him. And this was his statement in the parliament. This period, which I have served in the last 10 years, has seen my appointment as Federal Minister of Labor and Welfare, Federal Minister of Finance, as Governor of Nigeria in the World Bank, and in the International Monetary Fund, as leader of the NCNC in the Federal Parliamentary Party, as leader of the House of Representatives, and recently as chairman of the African Development Bank, a period which saw many constitutional conferences and political crises. When I look back on all these events, which I was a direct participant in the past 10 years, to me, the most significant is the achievement of Delta State. But I'm alive today, and I feel proud and elated that this is done. And what I want to say is I'm satisfied. I've reached the peak of my ambition and set to exit. He was set to go. He was somebody who loves business, and he was a proud entrepreneur, but they held him back. They held him back only for him to die in 1966. If the country wants to be fair, they will honor him. But more importantly is the legacy that he's a man of integrity. That's what he taught me. That's what I followed. I imagine the Minister of Finance, we used to use coins, and they put it on his table in his bedroom. So I hear, ice cream in those days, they go in bicycles. I hear the ice cream on the Nikon, and I go and pick 2 kobo on top of it because I want to buy and also share with the children from our staff. And I go and I buy the ice cream. He comes back and he says, call me Derry. I come and say, did you take money here? I look at him. What money? 2 kobo. But he has already noticed. And he says to me, you didn't work for it. You can't take it. It's not your money, it's my money. And I run to my stepmother and say, this papa is so strict and wicked. I use it to buy ice cream. Say, don't do it again. Do it again. So that's the level. And he teaches that a good name is better than riches. So that's what I got directly from him, apart from my faith that keeps me. I remember those are the lessons he taught me. So when I hear things, he's corrupt, and people don't know this is a man that earns from his business. From the paper I read, from his rubber business, £12,000 every week at that time.
Yeah. I think you can understand Nigerian sentiments. It's just a lack of trust in politicians of today. And so we forget that there was once a time when we had men of integrity lead this country, and we're hoping that we'll get that time again, so that we do not, that trust deficit, leaves us in terms of our consciousness as a people. But thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
We're really delighted
to
have had you.
Many people so with integrity.
Yes, absolutely.
Again and again, we should look out for positive things and try to eliminate the negative things overriding our society.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mrs. Ajoritsedere, Awosika MFR, Honorary Consul to the Czech Republic, and also former Chairman of Access Bank PLC.